Well, in 2023, 2 years ago, there was a group called the Ground Floor that started a company in California specifically designed to help people with friendship. The group titled themselves the Anti-Loneliness Club. The Anti-Loneliness Club. And for a fee, you could sign up for the Anti-Loneliness Club of $1,000 at first, and then a $200 a month fee to be a part of the Anti-Loneliness Club. And they have a waiting list because it's so popular. And then they started one in New York City, and the same thing happened. And they're moving around the country because it's so popular, because we, in our world, and they're touching on it, we have a loneliness epidemic right before our eyes, where 2 out of 3 adults say they are lonely more often than not. And it seems like joining the Anti-Loneliness Club is one way of dealing with the epic loneliness in our lives. There's probably unhealthier ways of dealing with loneliness, but there's probably cheaper ways of dealing with a lack of friendship than to join the Anti-Loneliness Club. If you think about Jesus' life and think about all the miracles that he has performed in his time, he walked on water. Wild, right? He turned water into wine. He gave people sight. He raised the dead. He calmed storms, like amazing miracles. And yet there's a lot of truth to this meme that's going around right now that says Jesus' biggest miracle was having 12 really close friends in his 30s. If anyone who's older goes, oh gosh, that hits way too hard. That is really, really painful. Because God created this world, and when he created the world, think about this. He created the world, and it was at the end of each day, he says, and it was good, and it was good, and it was good. Everything was good. He loves his creation. And yet before sin enters the world in Genesis 3:15, but before Genesis 3:15, in Genesis 2, God says it is not good. Something is not good. It's not good for man to be alone. This is before sin enters the world. And so what God is telling us here is that God hates loneliness. He hates loneliness. And so he creates a friend for Adam. We like to think of it more of like a spouse or this romantic thing, but he says it's not good for man to be alone, and so he creates a friend for Adam. And we could say, okay, that was then, but now the world is filled with human beings, filled with all this potential for friendship. And yet, it's as one sociologist calls it, we are alone together. Whew. That we are in a room full of people, and we can feel completely and utterly alone. Why? Why? One reason why is because not just our culture, but every single culture throughout the history of the world has put friendship on the back burner. Friendship is the least valuable relationships that we think we have here. We put friendship on the back burner, and we would say friendship is like sprinkles on ice cream. And you go, I mean, I could go with or without it. It really doesn't matter to me. In fact, if you're already doing it, sure, but if not, I don't want it. That's how we think about friendship. We think about friendship as it's not the main course, it's the toppings. And Proverbs is going to tell us that is absolutely wrong. That friendship is far more valuable than we actually know and believe. And yet we live in a world that idolizes one relationship, that says there is one relationship that is the most important relationship, and if you don't have it, you will not be complete. And that's our romantic relationships. I mean, you think of all the movies, All the songs, it's all about the romantic relationship. You compare all the songs about romance versus all the friendship songs, it dwarfs it, right? Because our culture and many cultures highlight the romantic relationship at the expense of the friendship relationship, and Proverbs says this should not be. This month, in the month of June, we are walking through the book of Proverbs, taking kind of a 30,000-foot view over a few different topics here and there. And we're asking the question, Proverbs asks the question of, what do you do when the answers run out? When you ask questions of the scripture that it doesn't seem to be like a clear answer for. It's kind of a gray area. It's not morally right or wrong. It's just gray. And Proverbs tries to speak into the gray areas. And that's what we're going to be talking about this month. And so the questions that I'm asking of the text, and I want to ask with you as we walk through the sermon here this morning, are these three questions. Should I make time for friends? How do I make friends? And how do I keep them? Should I make time for friends? How do I make friends? And how do I keep them? And so today we're going to be talking about the art of true friendship. The art of true friendship. So the first question, should you make friends? I think I've kind of tipped my hand a little bit already and made it very clear where I do think you should make friends. You should make time for friends. Proverbs 18:1 says, whoever isolates himself breaks out against all sound judgment. Whoever isolates themselves, whoever says, I don't really need the rest of the world, says it breaks all sound judgment. It's the Proverbs way of saying, you're being an idiot. It's that direct. Breaks all sound judgment. Like, are you here? Are you slow? It's saying it is obvious, right? So friendship, and I would argue, is not just obviously needed. I would argue that friendship is the most important relationship you will have on this earth. The most important relationship you can have. Now, C.S. Lewis famously has written this book called The Four Loves. Highly recommend it. Go for it. Read it. But he argues that the reason friendship is so forgotten about is because of a couple things. But he would say it's put on the back burner because it's the least emphasized and it's the least necessary. The least necessary. And you could think of the four loves that he talks about. Storge love, which is your familial love, the love you have for your family, that you kind of need to care for your family for them in order to make it and to survive. And then you have the eros love, the romantic love. And for the continuation of humanity, you kind of need the eros love to be in place. And then you have the agape love, and this is that God forever love, the covenantal, unending, and forever love. That is the richest of all loves. But then there's the philia love, which is where you get Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. That's the friendship love. And of all of these loves, the last one, the friendship love, is the least necessary. You don't actually need it to survive. On the surface, it looks like you could go with or without it. It's the sprinkles of love. You don't necessarily need it on the surface. But Proverbs would say, look again. Proverbs is going to say, you will not make it in this life without friends. Proverbs 18:24. We read it. A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Now, before we talk about the numbers of friends, it says if you don't actually have friends, you will come to ruin. You will be destroyed. You will fall, and you don't have someone to help pick you up. A friend is there to help pick you up, to carry you, to say, hey, let's do this together. You can do it. And so without friends, we will come to ruin. But then the number of friends, a man of many companions, is as if he doesn't have any friends. But there's a friend that sticks closer than a brother. And so what this is telling us is, one, it doesn't matter how many Facebook friends you actually have. The question is, do you actually have a few good friends that know you deeply, deeply well? And many of us might say, like, I don't even know if I have one. I had one, but I don't know if I have one anymore. Maybe I have two. And that's actually logical. That is the book of Proverbs saying it's rare, and it's actually impossible for you to have many friends like this. You can't have many friends. You have maybe 1 to 3 friends like this that will stick closer than a brother. That's just how it works. You can't give that much time. With the amount of work that type of friendship is going to require of you, you're not going to be able to have that many friends like that. I mean, you think about Jesus. Jesus had the crowds, but then he had the 12 who he made time for. But even within the 12, he had the 3 that he would spend even more time with. Those are the close friends that he had there. Those were his ride or die friends, right? And so you're not going to have that many. But then when you do find those friends, when you do find that friend that sticks closer than a brother, it says it sticks closer than a brother. So what it's translating here is that friends are greater than siblings. Your friends are better than your siblings because your siblings stick with you because they're stuck with you. Your siblings go, oh, I have to go to Christmas. Oh, I have to go home for this. They're stuck with you. But the beauty of friendship is there's also another sticking that happens, but they are willingly choosing to stick with you. And that word stick is the same thing of cleaving that we hear of Adam, leaving and leaving father and mother and cleaving to his wife. It's this intimate connection that you would willingly choose your friends. Think about that. Like, how wild is it? Your friends chose to be your friend. You're like, really? Do you know me? Right? They are willingly choosing to befriend you. That's what makes it so magical, is that there is something closer in there, that someone is willingly saying, I'm gonna glue myself to you. And the reason I would say that friendship is the most important relationship that we have is not only because of that intimacy that you can have there between friends, but also without friendships, those other relationships start to falter. Without friendships, marriages fail. Many times we hear about marriages failing and go, hey, who are your friends? And usually it's, don't have them. Because what happens undoubtedly is when your relationships and your marriage starts to falter and you put way too much pressure on the other person, on these unrealistic expectations, and then that person doesn't meet those expectations, either you blow up or you go talk to a friend and say, hey, I don't know what's going on. And a friend can go, hey, I've been there before. We can talk through this. If you and your parents are in a deep conflict and your friend go, oh, I know. I have parents just like that. Right? Like, friends make the world go round. They are the glue that helps keep all these other relationships together. We need friendships in this way. And so I would argue that we need friendships more than any other relationship. Friends are going to say, go back. All right. So if we've seen the importance of friendships, now how do you make friends? Anyone struggle with that, of saying, how do I make friends? I really want them, but how do I make friends? Here's my sad answer for you. How do you make friends? You don't. Great. End of sermon. Friendship isn't made, it's found. Did I put like a ton of eyes on that? Okay, no, the TV up there has got like 4 eyes for some reason. Sorry. Squirrel. It's so distracting. Friendship isn't made, it's found. What I mean by that is this. When you are trying to become friends with someone, it almost never happens. But what happens normally, when you meet someone, you talk to them, you ask them who they are, what their interests are, and what happens there is that you find a friendship. You find one. This is from C.S. Lewis in that Four Loves book. This famous quote he says here. He says, friendship is born at the moment when one person says to another, what? You too? I thought I was the only one. What? You too? I thought I was the only one. This has happened to you. I feel like I love this quote because I feel like it's one just very memorable. You can always remember you too, but also it just proves true over and over again. So where you say like, what? You like that author too? I thought no one knew about that author. And instantly you connect and you like share books with one another. Or you find someone who's interested in that same music or the same genre. You're like, what? No one's heard of that band. I thought I was the only one. Oh, let's go see them together. you instantly bond over that connection. There's this commonality that brings you together. And so friendship isn't formed or made, it's found, it's discovered. I think back a couple years ago when I was pastoring at another church here in town. One Malcolm Foley attended the very first service, and I met him during the Greeting of Peace, just like some of y'all met some new people here this morning at the Greeting of Peace and just said, hello, good to meet you. And we were acquaintances. We were companions at that time, right? That following Friday, my wife and I went to a Black Lives Matter rally here in town, and lo and behold, who parks right next to me? Malcolm Foley. And we're like, what? You're going to this too? That's awesome. We just met. Cool, let's go in together. And we had that connection. We're like, what, you're interested in this too? And then we find out, what, you really care about really random theologians and amazing theology too? Amazing. And then we're like, you like horror movies? And you want to talk about the theological implications of horror movies too? What? And so we connected over that. And because of that connection, it binds us together. And when you find that commonality with one another, you start going like, I want to hang out with you more because we're both excited about that thing together. That's the finding or the discovering of a friendship. And when you find that, you find your ride or die person. One way that you can ruin a friendship is when you make that friendship about the person, not about the commonality. Some of y'all have seen this or have experienced this, right? Like, the friendship begins with a common interest of what you two, but if you found it hard to make friends, one of the reasons why is because the minute you start focusing on a person, not on that commonality, the person starts to feel like we have a different type of relationship here. Because friends stand side by side and they look at the same thing and they say, that's awesome, and we want to enjoy it together. Romantic relationships stand at each other face to face, and instead of saying how awesome this show is, we say, how awesome you are. You know someone who's in those stages of romance, and they're just like, oh, you're amazing. You're so beautiful. I couldn't live without you. That's great. Those are great. Those are great things. That's how a romantic relationship is. It's about that person. And when you make your friendships about the person, it starts to get odd. So that's why if you go into a friendship or into a space and say, hey, will you be my friend? Someone might politely say, sure. But you're like, what are we doing here? Or, hey, are you my best friend? It changes things, right? It changes the nature of it. It's not wrong, right? We're talking about Proverbs here. This isn't morally wrong, but it just may not be wise. It may not be wise to have that type of friendship, but sometimes it ends up killing the friendship, okay? And so what we realize here is if you don't have that thing that you are passionate about, someone else isn't going to be able to join you in that passion. If you have something, if you don't value anything, there's nothing for someone to join you in that value. If you have no direction, no one can join you on that journey. And so we need to be able to say, like, no, this is something I love. Do you love it too? Yay or nay? Great, right? It's not about that person. All right, so friendship is found. But now, once you find that commonality, how do you keep the friends? And some of us go, this is where it struggles. I've met a lot of people that I feel like we connect on a lot of different things, but how do I keep the friendship? All right, so it's found, but how is it now forged? First, a friendship, how you keep a friend is that it's forged. Oh man, I love the word forged. It is being built. It begins with the commonality, but you can't stay there. Otherwise, your friendship gets stale. You're like, oh, all we care about is that one book. But do we have anything more? It needs to be forged through something. And this is where you come with one of the most famous Proverbs in the whole book, Proverbs 27:17, where it says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. That when you find someone, that friend, You find someone who's going to make you into that better person that you were wanting to be. You're going, hey, we actually are becoming something together. We are changing and morphing together as iron sharpens iron, right? And notice it doesn't say as a marshmallow sharpens a marshmallow, right? It says iron sharpening iron. There's going to be sparks that might fly from these friendships. Some of y'all's friendships are very sparkly, right? That you're sharpening one another because you're speaking very hard truths to one another. Proverbs 27:6, one of my favorite in all of the book of Proverbs. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, and profuse are the kisses of an enemy. Whew. I love this because one, it's so pithy, it's easy to memorize, but also something that I just feel like becomes true and true and true over and over and over because it's so counterintuitive. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. A friend wounds you, but profuse, kind of rancid, rotten milk smelling, are the kisses of an enemy. You can think of Judas with the kisses he gives. And it's just so counterintuitive because we like to think our friends are going to always love us for everything. You're like, you want the friends who are like, man, you're gold. Everything you do, amazing. And you want friends who are going to hype you up like that, but sometimes it starts to feel like fluff. And you're like, do you really care for me? Profuse. You start realizing how profuse the kisses of an enemy are. You actually don't care about me because you're saying, yeah, whatever you do is great. You're really showing apathy against me. But faithful are the wounds of a friend. And I think sometimes the best way of illustrating this is to go back and to look at old pictures of yourself and go, why didn't my friends say anything? So this is me in high school. And I had friends who said, hey, the seashell necklace, it's really cool. You are rocking that seashell necklace. I don't care if you can't breathe with it all around your neck. It's choking me completely. You look so good at that. And I wish I had friends who said, hey, the rings on the t-shirt, they're not cool, Slim. I needed friends who will love me by saying, you look stupid. Don't go with the rings. I was convinced the rings were the thing. And you can't see it with my senior picture here because of the black and white. But I had frosted tips on my hair. If I would have had friends that said, Slim, I know it's a fad in the early 2000s, 90s here. The frosted tips, you gotta stop. You gotta stop. In fact, if I would have listened to my friends, the faithful wounds of those friends would have spoke to me, I might still have hair to this day without putting all the chemicals in my hair. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. I would have loved to listen to my friends, but my friends said, no, man, you look good. You are rocking the frosted tip rigged seashell necklace. But to take it a little more serious, we need friends who can tell us, hey, you're better than that. We need friends who say, hey, don't wreck your life. Who say, hey, I'm going to take the keys because you're kind of driving out of control right now. We need friends who can speak into our lives in this way, and it may not feel good in the short term, but it's going to be healing in the long term. Because correction is an invitation to connection. Correction is an invitation to connection. The people who have a connection in my life are people who do faithfully say, hey, Slim, you're off here. And I trust them. I'm saying, thank you. Correction is an invitation to connection. And so let's be faithful with our wounds to our friends. Now, you have to forge the friendship. But if all you're doing is forging, and all you're doing is setting fire to your friends and sparks, you're going to burn the friend real quick, and they're going to go, they just don't like me. All they do is point out all my flaws. And so, not just forged, your friendship has to be fine-tuned. Wisdom comes in knowing the difference and knowing when to speak and when to not speak. Wisdom comes in knowing what to say and how to say it and when to say it and when to say, you know what, they don't need to hear this right now. This is where wisdom, and Proverbs is trying to give us this wisdom. Proverbs 25:20 says, like one who takes away a garment on a cold day, or like vinegar poured on soda, is one who sings songs to a heavy heart. It's like one who takes your garment away on a cold day, who pours vinegar on soda, right? This explosion here is one who sings songs to a heavy heart. And what it's trying to say is a true friend is so fine-tuned to who you are. They know what you're going through, and they know when it's time to sing, when it's time to be joyful, when it's time to laugh. And they also know, hey, you're going through something, and all I need to do with you right now is just come over and we can cry. A good friend knows the difference, knows when to say those things and when not to say those things. A good friend knows to say, like, hey, your world just blew up. I'm stopping everything. And there's probably nothing more isolating and deflating when your world does blow up, and it will one day. And to have your deep friends, your close friends, act as if the world just keeps spinning and nothing's the matter. You start realizing that those were kind of shallow friendships. Because my real friends would know that I'm barely getting out of bed today. And the world's not going to continue moving. And they'll stop everything for this explosion that's happening. They're not going to keep on keeping on. That's what a real friend will do. Likewise, Proverbs 27:14 says, if a man loudly blesses his neighbor early in the morning, it will be taken as a curse. When you are so fine-tuned with someone, when you know your friend so well, you know whether they're a morning person or whether they're not. My first year of marriage, I was a curse to Kristen because I did not know I was blessing her loudly early in the morning. I did not know that she is not a morning person, and I would go, hey, that movie we saw last night, like, amazing. Inception, like, what is actually happening? Did the top still spin? I don't know. What's going on? Right? Like, and she's just like, stop. And I'm asking, so what's your thoughts on the death penalty? And she's just like, go away. Right? Like, I was a curse, according to Proverbs, to her. I had to learn to fine-tune to go, this is how she is in the morning, and I need to speak and know when to not speak. And so you're forged as friends, you're fine-tuned, but maybe the last and most important thing to make these friendships last is to be a faithful friend. Proverbs 17:17 says, a friend loves at all times. A friend loves at all times. A friend has earned the right to speak because they've been with you for a lot of time. They know the nuance, whether to fine-tune how to speak into your life because they've been in your life. At all times means you have to have the most important ability to be a good friend. The most important ability as a friend is your availability. The most important ability you have to be a good friend is your availability, because if at the bare minimum to say a friend loves at all times means it's going to require time. It's going to require you to actually give time to that friend. And this is maybe one of the reasons why it's harder and harder and harder as we get older, when more things are competing for our time. To say, I'm going to budget this amount of time for my friends. I'm going to make this a priority because it's that important. But if you want to have good friends, you have to say, I'm going to give it time. It's crucial. And when we say all times, what we also mean is all times, even when it's hard. I'm going to be your friend even when it's hard. Because as you know, friends will have conflict. The sparks will fly. And all times is saying, what if? What if instead of bouncing when that happens, what if you stayed? What if you said, I'm going to work through this conflict together? What if you said, you may not want it right now, but I'm here. I'm here when we can work through it together. A friend loves at all times, even when it's not the easiest thing to do. And so we're going to work through this. Now, all times also means you have to be somewhat near the person. So availability matters, but proximity matters too. Proverbs 27:10 says, better a neighbor nearby than a relative far away. Better a neighbor nearby than a relative far away. And so it is so difficult to continue friendships with people who move away. And we're going to try. we're going to try. Carrie, Jonathan, we're going to try. But as you know, when you do move, there's just different things. You don't see it as often. It's incredibly difficult. And so when you can, proximity matters. And so show up, be consistent, join the gathering. If you have 1 or 2 friends, invite them over as much as possible. Show up to their house. Here's the standard. Can you show up, whether you have good friends or not, can you show up to their house without texting or calling ahead of time? And then they say, of course, come on in. Do you have friends like that? Next level friends say, of course, come on in. Next level friends say, come on in, and then you just walk straight to their fridge. You've not been given permission, but you walk straight into their fridge and you get what you want. Do you have that type of friendship? Like, we were made for that type of friendship. We were made to be able to be in that type of intimacy with one another. But some of us, this kind of scares us, yeah? It kind of scares us to have that type of intimacy. Like, do you have a friend that you say, I love you to? Do you have a friend that you say, I love you to? Does it make you a little uncomfortable? I mean, it's one of the 4 loves, so it's a version of love to say, I love you to your friend. Do you have someone that you can say that to? A few years ago, one of my friends, Pastor Malcolm Foley, was calling me on the phone, and we were talking about whatever, and then he ends it when he says, Slim, I love you. I was so underprepared for this moment. I did not handle it well. And I think he's watching the live stream. I told him not to watch. I was so underprepared for this moment. I was like, and I did what you may have done in this situation. I go, you too. I love you. You too. And we ended the phone call. Not a month later, we're on the phone again. And he ends it with, Slim, I love you. And I was like, is this a test? I didn't study again. I was not prepared for this. I was trying to amp it up, and I still couldn't muster it. I was like, love you, brother. And I was like, why? Brother, why do we struggle to sit with this moment to say, I love you to your friends? Like, why do I struggle with it? Why do we struggle with it? I know I'm not alone. We struggle to say, I love you to our friends, because I think one is that we're afraid of that vulnerability that comes with that. Like, any type of love makes you vulnerable, because it opens you up for the possibility of rejection. It opens you up for the possibility of rejection, and that is humanity's deepest fear. For someone to see you, to know you, and then to reject you. And so instead of opening ourselves up to this type of love, what do? We build our mini castles of protection and insulate ourselves against the outside world so that we're never hurt, we're never burned, we're never dumped upon. And we say, no, I'm good, love you, bro. Gosh. God says it is not good for us to be alone. And so I pray what Augustine prayed, the North African theologian. He says, Lord, save me from the loneliness of self-sufficiency. Lord, save me from the loneliness of self-sufficiency. Some of us are trying to say we can do it on our own. We keep isolating ourselves, and all of a sudden we realize we're really alone. Lord, save me from that. Even when a friend says, I love you, and we feel like we can't open ourselves up to it, save me from that. Some of y'all might be feeling convicted. You're saying, one, I don't have a friend like this, and I'm feeling sad about that. Some of y'all might be feeling convicted. You're saying, I'm not that good of a friend. I've not been that good of a friend to the people around me. I've not given my time. I've not given them all that I am. And what I want to encourage you, the good news of the gospel and the good news of the Bible is that it doesn't just provide us principles for good friendship, it gives us the person for friendship. The Bible isn't just saying, here's the best friend that you should go be it. No, it's actually given us the person who tells us in John 15, we did it with our call to worship this morning. John 15, Jesus says, greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. And I have called you friends. Y'all think of the ridiculousness of this phrase. That Jesus is calling us friends. Like, he says, I've not called you servants. I mean, God of the world is not saying, I'm not calling you servants or minions. He's saying, I'm calling you friends, and we're going to stand side by side. He's bringing us up to his level. Like, that's just wild that Jesus would say, we're having that type of relationship where we're going to be friends. We're going to see the creation go, isn't that beautiful? That sunrise together, like, man, that is amazing. Jesus is offering us into that type of intimacy and that type of relationship. And when we have that, oh my goodness, we have everything. When you know that you have the God of the universe who says, I love you enough to lay down my life for you, and you can trust that when I do wound you as a friend, you can trust those wounds are redemptive because I'm showing you the wounds that I've taken for you. I'm showing you how much I deeply, deeply love you, and I am for you. Therefore, when I do say, hey, this is unhealthy, this is killing you, you can trust that it's for your good that I'm speaking these things to you. And you know that he's so fine-tuned, he knows you so deeply and well. You go, you know me that deeply, and you know me that well, and you still haven't rejected me? And he goes, no, it's made me love you even more. I know you deeply, and I love you even more because of that. And when you know that type of love, that type of friendship, then you open yourselves up to the friendships in our church and in our communities. Because you're not worried about the vulnerability anymore. You're like, I've got it. I've got the best friend in the world, but I'm opening myself up to more friends around here. And when you also have that type of friendship, that type of love, now you have the one commonality that unites all Christians everywhere. So you say, we can all together say, you too worship the God of the universe? Oh, let's explore it together. Like, that is the deepest connection that we all have with one another. It's not whatever political party, it's not where you're from, it's not what music you care about, what movies you care about, it's you too. You were saved by this Savior of the world too? Let's explore that together. All right, so what? What do we do with all this? Let me encourage you, leave you with this. Receive the friendship of Christ. First, receive that friendship. If you miss that, the rest just makes it even that much more difficult. Let him heal your wounds, forgive your failures, and call you into a covenantal love. Because no greater love than this. Like, this is love, and we are being called into that friendship with him. And then second, reevaluate your friendships. Reevaluate your friendships. It's been said that we are the average of the 5 closest friends. We are the average of our 5 closest friends. And so if you can think of your 5 closest friends, for better or worse, you're kind of becoming like them. We don't like to think of it. We think, no, I'm not becoming, I'm on my own island. No, we are influenced by our friends greatly. There's a proverb in the New Testament, 1 Corinthians 15, says, bad company corrupts good character. Bad company corrupts good character. And so are your friends making you into the type of person you want to be? Are you excited about who they are becoming and saying, I want to become like them? And so let's reevaluate our friendships. Lastly, risk deeper community. Don't settle for acquaintances. Let's actually risk. And I know that there's a risk involved with this, but it's so worth it. Risk deeper community. And so stick around. Be committed to the people around you. Budget your time for them. Actually tell your friend, I love you. Not love you, bro. I love you, Malcolm. Tell your friend, I love you, and dive deeper into those communities. Practically, if you're saying, I still don't even know I know I can't make friends, but how do I find them? How do I discover them? Put yourself in places where you can meet with people. Sunday morning, amen. Start here. Join in with some small groups, some book clubs. Find out, like, oh, you actually care about this author, this book, this thing? You start learning about people's, quirks. Join into those communities. But the easiest way, like by far that I found, is you serve alongside one another. So if you have yet to join in and serve, be on the security team or wherever you may, in the children's team or a coffee team or a slide team or whatever it may be, these are the easiest ways because you are now sitting side by side with one another. And it's not about you, it's about the mission. And that joined mission together, that's where the magic happens. And so if you've yet to join in that way, man, that real friendships happen there too. And so let me encourage you to receive the friendship of Christ, reevaluate your friendships, and let's risk deeper community. Let me pray for us.